Now that we have successfully installed a new Vue project, let's look at the folder structure. So first we have this node module folder. This contains files for our dependencies. We would never have to touch any of this. Then we have this public folder, which is for files that is accessible to everyone, like the HTML file, the icon, the robots.txt, sitemap, etc. Source is our main folder. We'll get back to this in a moment, but let's look at the rest of the files. So we have this browser list.rc. This is specifying the target version of our build. Then we have the git ignore. Git ignore is useful if you are using GitHub. This is basically saying don't commit these files. If you don't use GitHub, you can ignore this. Then we have this babelconfig.js. We have this package.json. This basically contains our dependencies. The package.log.json, which is basically locking the versions of our installed dependencies. Finally, we have a readme file. You can change it if you want. Okay, now let's look at the source folder. So inside this we have a assets folder. Assets folder is for static files like the images, style.css, media files, etc. Then we have the components where we'll store all our components. Then we have a router. Router is for where we're specifying which component or page to show when the user navigates to a route. We'll look at this later. Then we have the views. Views is for our pages. And then we have the app.view, which is our main component. So let me just simplify this for now. So I'm going to delete all this, and here instead of all this I'm just going to have a paragraph text that will say hello. And also to simplify it even more, I'm going to delete this views folder. I'm going to delete this router folder, the components folder, and the assets folder also. So now we only have the app.view and the main.js. The main.js is our main entry point of our app. So first, let's see what we're doing here. So first we're importing Vue from Vue. Of course, we need to import Vue if you want to use Vue. Then we're importing the app component. So then we're importing router. So now we can delete this because we have deleted the routes folder, and delete this here also. So now let's see what we're doing. So first we're saying vue.config.production tip equal to false. So don't give us tips about production. We'll deploy our app later on. But now let's see what we're doing. First we are creating a new Vue object. Here we have this render function, and in the render function we're simply rendering our app. And we're saying .mount #app. So what we're doing is, in our public folder you'll see we have a div that has the ID of app. So what we're saying is take this from the app component and put it inside the div that has the ID of app. So this is our main.js. So if we save this, as you can see, we only have a text that says hello, because our component only have this paragraph text that says hello. Okay, now let's move on. So in the app is a component. A component needs to have an extension of .view. So a component can have up to 3 parts. So first is the template section, where we can have our HTML. We can also have a section called script. The script section is for our JavaScript. And then we can have another section called styles. So the styles is for our styles or CSS. So we can say our paragraph text to have a color of red. Let's do that. And if we save it, as you can see, our paragraph is now a color of red. So I don't want any script or style for now, so I'm going to delete all of them and Ctrl S, like so. What if we wanted to have another paragraph text? So let's say another paragraph text that says world. And if we now save it, as you can see, we have this error. That is because a template can only return one maximum parent element, but now we are returning 2, so that is why we are getting error. So what if we wanted to return 2 elements? So in that case, we simply can wrap everything inside a parent element. So we can have a div, and inside that div we can have as many elements as we want. So if we save it, now it works perfectly. Okay, so you can in fact use styles in your component, but I like to use a global style.css. So I'm going to create a folder called assets. So new folder called assets. Inside that I'm going to have a file called style.css. So first let's remove the margin and padding from everything. So we can say asterisk, and we can say margin to 0, and we are going to say padding to also 0. If we save this, nothing will happen. That is because we didn't link our CSS file in the HTML. So if you want, you can link it in the HTML, but what else you can do is simply import it in your JavaScript. So we can just say import, and we can say ./assets/style.css. So style.css. And if we save this, you will see this works. That is because our Vue is configured to be able to handle files like CSS files. So this works. So I'm mostly going to write the CSS in this style.css files. So I can close the main.js for now. Okay, now let's create another component. So apart from the app component, all the components, I want them to be inside a folder called components. So let's create a folder called components. So here I'm going to create a Navbar component. So we're going to say new file and we're going to say Navbar, and the extension have to be .vue. So we know a component needs to have a template section, and here we can say Navbar, like so. And now we also know that a component can also have a component. So let's try to use the Navbar in our app component. So let's see how we can do that. So for that we need to have a script section. Here we first have to going to import the Navbar. So we're going to say import Navbar from, and we're going to say .components/Navbar.vue. components/Navbar.vue. So now you see we are using // that is because we are in the app folder and then we are saying ./components. So we are going to the components, then we are saying Navbar.vue. But this our app component could have been inside some other folder. In that case we would have to say /components. So this can be a little confusing. So instead what we can do is use an alias. So if we say @ no matter what folder we're in, the @ will point to the source folder. So this is much better. So we're saying @/component meaning source/components. So this is much better way. Then we have to export a default object. Inside that we are going to have a property called components. So components. Here we can name our component whatever we want. This is basically the tag of our component. Whatever we want, we can call it. Then we are going to say this set to the actual component. So we are going to say Navbar equals to Navbar. But now you see we have Navbar equals to Navbar. These both are the same. So using ES6 we can make it shorter, but by just saying Navbar, and this is same as saying Navbar : Navbar. So now we can use it just like HTML text. So we can say Navbar and /Navbar, and here is our Navbar. And if you want, you can use it like a self-closing text. So we can simply say like so, and this will still work. Another thing I want to show is that you know that we can have a style section in our CSS. So now if we say paragraph to have a color of red, you'll see our paragraphs have the color of red. This paragraph here and this paragraph here, all of them has the color of red. But what if you wanted only this paragraph inside this component to have a color of red? Or in other words, the styles here should only affect this component. How you do that? Well, in that case you can use the attribute called scoped. So if you use this attribute, now the styles will only be affected to this component itself. So although we have paragraph text inside this app component, the styles are not affected in those paragraph. Only this paragraph is affected by these styles. So I don't like using styles in components, so I'm going to delete this. Just have the paragraph, and let's try to create actual Navbar. So we're gonna have a div that will have a class of Navbar. And here we're first going to have a link with the class of logo. So we're going to say a.logo. And for now the issue can be a hashtag, and let's name it something, call it something. So I'm going to call our app Vue-Kanban. So Vue-Kanban, like so. And inside that I'm going to have some links. So I'm going to have a div with the class of navlinks. Inside that we are going to have link text. So we're going to say a. Again, the href can be hashtag. We're going to have a link to the home page, which is the home page. Let's copy it a few more times. Then we're going to have a facts page. And finally we're going to have an about page. So if we save it, this is how our Navbar looks like. So let's style it. First I'm going to delete these paragraphs. I don't need it. Okay, now in the styles, let's target our Navbar. So we're going to say .navbar. So you can say this should have a height. Let's say height of 55 pixel. And let's say this should also have a background color of some blue color. So let's try to select a blue color. Let's try this. And yeah, this should be good enough. Now let's say the links inside the Navbar should have a color of white. So we can say color of white, and we are also going to say text decoration to none. So remove this underline like so. So this is how this looks. So now let's say our Navbar should have a display of flex. So I can say display flex like so. Now let's say justify content to space between, so justify content space between, and now the elements will be in both corner, and we can center them vertically by saying align items to center. So we can say align items to center, like so. Now I want some padding, so I am going to give this navbar another class of container. Now let's style the container. So let's say this should have a padding of 10 viewport width, so like so. Actually 10 viewport width from left and right, and the top bottom should be 0. Let's see. Now in big screen this will work, but smaller screen this is too much padding, so let's reduce that in small screen. So let's use media query. So we're gonna say add media screen and max width of, let's say, 1000 pixel. In that case our container will have a padding left right of 6 pixel, like so. Let's copy this, and it should be 1000, and for screen size a maximum of 650 pixel. The container should have a padding of, let's say, 3 viewport width in left and right. So now if we save this and try to resize our screen, this looks good in all screen size. Okay, let's also use a different font family. So we can say our body to have a font family of, I like Arial, so I'm going to say Arial. You can use Google font, whatever font you want, like so. Now let's target our logo. So we're gonna say dot logo. Let's say this should have a font size of 1.1 em, and this should have a font weight of bold, like so. Now let's target this nav links. So we're gonna say dot nav links, and the A tag inside them. They should have an opacity of 0. So let's say opacity of 0.9, and they should have a font size of, the font size will be 0.9 em. So 0.9 em, like so. And they will also have a margin left. So we can say margin left of 0.75 em. Okay, looks like the styles are not applied. Let's see. It should be nav links, like so. So now the styles are applied, and this looks like this. So let's also say text transform to uppercase. So we can say text transform uppercase, like so. And now we're gonna say when we hover on them, the opacity should be 1, and we can also add a text decoration. So we can say text decoration to be underlined, like so. So when we hover on them, the opacity is set to 1 and the text decoration is set to underline. Now we also want a button that will say add board. So we're gonna create a button with a class of .btn, like so. Now let's say add board, like so. So let's style our button. So we're gonna say .button. So button should not have any border or outline. So we're gonna say border to none and outline to none, like so. So now let's give it some padding. So let's say padding top bottom of, let's try 0.5 em, and left right of, let's try 0.7 em, and this should work. And let's say border radius. So let's say border dash radius of 5 pixel. Let's see how that looks. It is too much, so let's say 0.3 pixel. And we're gonna say background color, and the background color should be the same blue color. So instead of using this hex code everywhere, I'm going to use a CSS variable. So cut this, and we're going to say :root. So here we're going to have a variable called dash primary dash color. This will be that hexadecimal color code, like so. Save it. So now here we can say dash var dash primary color, and this will be the primary color. So we can use the variable here also now. So we can say background color equals to dash primary color, like so. Okay, looks like we changed it accidentally, so let's go back. Yeah, like so. So now the button is same color as our navbar, so we can see it clearly. So let's say the button inside the nav link, so we're gonna say Control C, Control V, and the button inside that should have a background color of white. So we can say background color to be #FFF. And let's say this should also have a margin left, so we're gonna say margin left of 0.75 em. And the button should also have a text transform of uppercase. So let's do that. So we can say text transform to uppercase, like so, and we can say font weight to bold, like so. Now I want the color to be the primary color again, so we're gonna say color to be -- primary color, like so. And now I want to add a plus icon. So for icons I'm going to use Font Awesome. So I can simply say Font Awesome CDN. Click on this, and now we can simply copy the script tag by clicking this button here and go to our HTML, and just above the title I'm going to paste the CDN that we copied, like so. So this is our Font Awesome link, CDN link. So close this. If you have never used Font Awesome, don't worry, it is very easy to use. Simply you are gonna have to use the I tag. Here you can have a class, and all Font Awesome needs to have a class of FAS or FAR or FAB. FAS means solid icon, so we're going to say FAS, then we have to say FA dash, then the icon name. So you want to use the plus icon, so we can say PLUS plus, and now you'll see we have this plus icon here. Let's say in the styles, so we can say .btn -i, so the icon inside that, this should have a margin right of 0.5 em, so like so. So now this is our navbar, but if we click on this, nothing happens. So in the next video we're gonna see how we can implement routing and make these links functional. So I'll see you in the next video.